After beating Sly 2, I quickly moved on to the third game, Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves, which was developed by Sucker Punch and was published by Sony. Going into the game, I wasn't sure what would be different or improved this time around. I did know the game was pretty well received by critics and players, but what do I think of it? Is it good, bad, or just meh? In terms of story, I actually happen to really like the setup. While in jail, Sly ends up coming across a prisoner who used to work for Sly's dad. He tells Sly of a secret treasure that the Cooper family had built up throughout the generations. Sly escapes prison and sets out to reform his old gang along with some additional help in order to break into the Cooper vault. It's a simple but fun idea that really fits the thieving tone of the series, which is great. Sure, there aren't any real plot twists, which is fine, and the side stories are for the most part pretty entertaining. If there's one thing that I really hate about the story, it's the fact that the game goes over Sly's backstory, which was very unnecessary. For characters, Sly and Carmelita Fox are once again my favorites, especially since the story is about Sly and his family legacy. Bentley I actually find to be more enjoyable this time around, but his voice still kind of annoys me. And once again, I still don't like Murray. In fact, I find him to be most annoying in this game. It's nice to see villains from previous games join your team as they are rather likable, as well as the new villains and a new character named Penelope. Sly 3 is a stealth platformer with some open world aspects. Once again, the game is divided up between chapters, with each chapter having its own sandbox world. Some of the sandbox worlds are a bit large, but for the most part they aren't too big and don't become too much of a chore to navigate. Just like before, you progress through the game by doing missions with the specific character. Missions vary by quite a lot depending on which character you are going to have to play as. Sly once again has the greater focus on stealth and platforming, such as sneaking up on enemies, climbing buildings, and going through narrow sections. Throughout the game, you will be playing as Sly as he has the most abilities and is the best character to play as when exploring the open worlds. Combat in the game is just like Sly 2, where enemies can spot you and call over more enemies, and characters lock onto enemies when fighting them, which is still kind of annoying. To add to this, enemies have a lot of HP, so you're probably going to be focusing more on sneaking attacks since they do better for taking out enemies. You will also be able to play as other characters. In fact, quite a few characters are now playable. First, Murray. Once again, Murray is best for taking out enemies since he's the muscle. However, he now also has the ability to roll into a ball, and this is used for bouncing and getting past certain areas. However, the ball form is kinda slow. Other than that, he plays pretty well with some rather enjoyable missions. Bentley this time around is much better. First off, Bentley is more mobile and more capable in combat. He still has a focus on long-range attacks, but when in a tight spot he can easily get away, especially when you buy upgrades for his wheelchair, like the super boost and extra jumps. Dimitri is now a playable character, with all of his missions taking place underwater in an FPS perspective, and for the most part they play rather well. However, he has the least amount of missions in the entire game, making him rather forgettable. Carmelita Fox is also playable in certain moments, with her controls being like that of a third-person shooter. However, it feels rather awkward and stiff. Next we have the Guru, who can disguise himself to hide from enemies or control their mind by jumping onto them. Controlling enemies is okay, it's annoying how fast they go, but it still works. Moving on, we have the Panda King, who is rather slow and stiff, and his thing is that he can charge up a cannon that will shoot fireworks that lock onto enemies. And lastly, we have Penelope, whose missions revolve around her using her gadgets like her RC car, and these control okay, but I'll admit, in certain missions, they can be quite frustrating to control. There are a few boss fights in the game, however only 2 of them really stood out to me in a very positive way. At the open worlds, you can search for hidden treasures, however I never really did this. You can also replay missions, which is nice when it comes to the fun missions. Plus, there are some missions that can be replayed with special challenges to them. Visually, the game looks good. Its comic book art style really lets colors pop, and environments are very well detailed and are enjoyable to explore. Character models are still good for the most part, with some nice detail to them as well as good animation most of the time. However, some models still look rather stiff and awkward. The music is also good, but I didn't find many of the tracks to be that memorable. All in all, there are aspects that I really like about this game. For one thing, it's not too long, which is good, and the open worlds are more reasonably sized. There are some really great moments of platforming in the game which I really liked, and most of the side characters have good gameplay. However, because of all the new characters, the game lacks a better focus in its gameplay and flow, with the pirate chapter being the worst chapter in the game. Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves is a good game. While I certainly have some issues with the game, like certain characters being clunky to control and certain missions being rather annoying, there were still some really great moments that I wasn't expecting. I really love the platforming segments with Sly, plus Bentley and Murray are now more enjoyable to play. If anything I said interests you in this game, then I would suggest you go and play it. I will admit I'm still not very convinced that open worlds really work for the Sly series. I would much rather see the series put a greater focus on tight level design and platforming, but this game does the open world sections well. It just needs some improvement. I have not played the 4th game, but I have heard positive things about it, and I do know its gimmick, which I find to be really cool. With that being said, I find the Sly series to be pretty alright. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I think there is still a lot of possibilities with the series that should be explored, and I would like to see the series continue on. Of the 3 main PS2 platforming mascots, the Sly series is right in the middle for me. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review and found it to be rather informative. If you'd like to see more reviews, please check out my channel. And please don't forget to subscribe. And if there are any other PS2 games you'd like to see me review in the future, please leave a suggestion down below. Well, I'm MCB the PS2 Gamer, and I'll see you guys next time.